Have some folks. We may have a few people joining us late, but we're going to go ahead and kickstart today's webinar. This is one in many of a series of UXPA International webinars, and we cover a wide range of UX and UX research topics delivered by some of the industry's leading professionals. We want to let you know that this event is recorded, so if for some reason you have to step out or you miss something and you want to come back to it later, this video will be posted at uxpa.org. You should also go there to check out upcoming webinars and short courses that we offer each month. So without further ado, today's webinar is Demystifying the Front End of Design. And this is that first phase of the design thinking process. It's most crucial, that generative stage, when we're really trying to leverage human insight to define customer value. So our presenters today are with us. They've just written a book. So Marty, Gage, and Spencer Murrell, have worked side by side for the last. Sorry?
Murrell like squirrel.
Murrell like squirrel. Marty is a human factors psychologist. Spencer Murrell, like squirrel, is an industrial designer, and they've worked together for the last 33 years in the front end design. And they have a new book, User Experience Research, Discover What Customers Really Want. I want to say I actually have a copy, and I'm giving serious consideration to implementing it, to bringing it into our classroom as a future textbook for UX, one of our UX research methods courses. So it's really an incredibly beautiful and well laid out book, but it has great content as well. So I'm going to stop talking. There will be time for everybody at the end to have questions and answers. So please feel free to put them in the chat or put them in the Q&A, and we'll handle those at the end. Over to you guys.
Thanks for the nice introduction. I'm going to take the leap to share my screen and hope it works out. I'm always holding my breath at this point in the presentation. Okay, I hope you guys can see that. As we were just, you were just informed, we published this book this spring, so it's a relatively new book. And, you know, it's really about our process to inform and inspire innovation based on some 3 decades of trial and error to some very unique research techniques.
There was a lot of error in there.
We're not going to talk about the error. We're going to talk about the trial. How do I advance that? It's not working.
You just click on here.
All right. So basically, we're going to take you through what the book is about. And as it was stated in the front, in the beginning, this is about the fuzzy front end. You know, and from where we sit, having decades of experience in the innovation space, I think companies are still having a tough time here. You know, from what we see, there's a need for insight into consumers that can be acted on by all functions in a company. And that seems to be inconsistently delivered at this point in history. And we're here to fix that. We talked about how important the first phase of the design thinking process is. You know, all these steps and all the time and all the money you're going to spend after this first step is all going to be affected by how well you did that first step. You know, the defining the problem, ideating the solution, prototyping and testing, you can waste a lot of time if you don't get this first step right. So our book is based on a systematic way to deliver this first step. Now, we've taken I think improved the design thinking process by putting an experiential spin on it. You know, we're not talking about empathy anymore when we talk about the first phase of design thinking. We're talking about defining value. And actually, we're talking about the people that use the man-made systems are the ones that define value for that experience. And that's what our research seeks to do. Once you know what they value, we have two hurdles after that. We have to drive alignment in an organization. We have to drive alignment about the organization agrees that we've defined value from the consumer's perspective, user's perspective, and then they have to agree on what to do about it. So those two very different parts of alignment, two very different processes to get that done. But once you've done the first step right, it's really the guardrails for all the design work that happens. You're not focused on any outlier stuff. You're focused on how consumers define value and how to deliver that through the design of a system. And then when we think about prototyping, we think about prototyping experiences. And what we mean when we say that is a way to communicate not only the emotional state that you want to get people to through the design of your thing, but the benefits that deliver that state and the features that deliver those benefits. And then lastly, we take what we learned up front in the defined values, and we use that as the metric to measure ideas or to evaluate ideas. And we think that it's a better indicator of how successful your solution is going to be, because you've asked consumers based on what they want, how's this thing delivering that? So that's our new spin on.
And it's not in lieu of usability testing. You still got to usability test stuff, but you just want to make sure you're testing something that people find desirable.
Correct.
So we've bookended it with value now, the design thinking process.
All right. So how can this book help you guys? It'll help you define and deliver value propositions that resonate with your target audience. That's its sole purpose, I think. And, depending on what your challenge is for your UX strategy, it could be uncovering big ideas. It could be revitalizing a brand. It could be driving adoption and use, or establishing and maintaining category leadership. These are primarily the reasons our clients come to us. So a little bit about the backstory. You get to see a picture of us in what was that, Marty? 89, I think. 89, we're getting suited up to do some research in an OR. And this was at a consulting firm. I'm a product designer by training. Marty's a human factor psychologist. So we've taken this art and science approach to bumping this process along through the decades to get it to a place where it's really powerful. This red is my handwriting, but I'm going to let Marty tell the story.
All right. So this, as a human factors guy, I was so proud of my first report I did for Spencer. And Spencer came to me and he says, Marty, I don't know how to use this. And as you see, he wrote more specific at the top. So it took 30 years to figure out how to do this in a consistent way, and it got off to a rough start.
The fact that he saved something that's that old is just amazing to me. All right, so Marty mentioned the trial and error in the beginning, and we've done this through various incarnations in our careers with Fortune 500 companies. So the work has been refined, and currently we're in a place called Lexton, which is the human experience firm in Columbus, Ohio. And here at Lexton, we've been here, 16 or 17 years? 16 years, over the last 16 years. We finally got this to a place where we can consistently deliver the stuff that informs, inspires the innovation in companies. Then we're just going to show you a few applications. This is a project we did for Lincoln to define what luxury looks and acts like in the control system in their vehicles.
Luxury HMI, all the way to the screen acts.
For C&H, this was back when robotic tractors were just coming on the scene. We helped them develop a benchmark precision farming solution and interface for tractors. For Ohio Health, we understood the consumer's experience of where to go for care and defined all the touch points, whether they be physical or digital or human, and measurement criteria so that they can measure their solutions. We've recently done a lot of work for HP in this award-winning setup experience, which is, once again, a combination of physical and digital stuff, but it's gotten a lot of accolades in the industry for the setup of printers. This stuff, it's not just about digital stuff for us. We do a lot of food-oriented projects. In this case, millennials weren't buying prepared food, and by understanding what they were looking for in a healthy eating experience, we were able to help ConAgra grow the millennial segment of their business. And then for Kohler, we went out to understand vanities and developed the criteria for a line of vanity products. But we also, through taking an experiential approach, we realized that seeing what you're doing when you're at the vanity was really important. So that inspired Kohler to actually get into the lighting business, these lighted mirrors, and they've had a tremendous success in that too.
And I think the big idea here is that the experiential perspective that we mentioned in the beginning works on any type of system, for lack of a better word, that people ultimately have an emotional outcome with when they interact with it, which is pretty much everything.
Okay, so we think to talk about the book, we got to talk about our SCAD partnership. The Savannah College of Art and Design of course, in Savannah. Marty and I have been guest lecturing down there for probably 20 years off and on. And one day at lunch with the dean, he suggested that, he said that he wanted a certification in design research, which sounded like a weird idea to us, but he goes, I offer my students certifications in a lot of things, CAD and some of the other things.
Adobe, 3D modeling.
And it looks good on their resume, but he said, I need one for design research because everybody's got a different way of doing it and we don't know how to do it. So we started developing a curriculum for SCAD 5 years ago. 6 years ago. And that curriculum is what turned into the book, basically. But it was a lot of, it's been tried and tested at SCAD over those 6 years. We had a professor come up and learn our process, and then she would go back with lessons plans, and then they would see how the kids responded to that, and they would bring it back to us and we would refine it. So there's a lot of back and forth to get this curriculum right. And so the certification for design research, the Lexton Design Research Certification, has been awarded to 500 students already. And to win a certification, you have to get an A in the class, basically. And the kids themselves love the book. We spent a lot of time designing it here in our belief that things need to be engaging and clear. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that with the book. This is us at a book signing in Savannah with the students that had just gotten their certification. Okay, let's talk about what's in the book a little bit. Marty's going to take it from here, I think.
All right. The book outlines, it's based on this first step in design thinking process, but that has got a structure too. Just as there's a steps in design thinking holistically, we believe there's steps in this first component. So if you define your objectives, and I want us to really hit that hard. Define it, figure out what you're going to learn. I think upfront user research, it's important to figure out what do you need to achieve as a business? What do you need to achieve for a social outcome or social impact if you're doing some sort of social innovation initiative? What do you need? What's the goal? What do you need to learn from the users in order to achieve that goal? Then you build an approach that's going to get the information you need to achieve that goal. Then you do the research. You systematically identify patterns in the data, because we'll get into it, but you do a repeatable process. And then you tell the story through insight translation. And we've outlined 6 key principles that will guide you through this throughout the book. So all the book, you can go back to 6 key ideas that can guide your thinking. So it's meant to help you think as opposed to be prescriptive about what to do. So it's a flexible, repeatable approach. So it's relevant. As I said just a minute ago, it's grounded in your desired outcomes and what you need to learn to do that. So your learning objectives drive your methodological choices. It's holistic, and then it connects what you make to how you make people feel, what you design to the emotional outcome. It's aspirational, which is probably one of the bigger differences in terms of the other design research, user experience research approaches you've heard about in the past, and then it's grounded in what people wish for. But it's rigorous. So it's based on minimizing bias. I'm a human factors guy by training. I was taught you shouldn't cross the street without P less than 0.05. So
30 years he's been saying that. I have no idea what that means.
anyways, so yeah, it's a repeatable process that allows you to identify patterns in the data to ensure your outcomes aren't due to chance, but are actually expressive of a phenomenon that exists in the world. Actionable. People know how to use it. That's key for user experience research in the fuzzy front end. And visual. It uses pictures and imagery to engage people and tell the story and describe the problem to solve. It's got 10 chapters in the book. And the book it's structured. One thing about having information architects on staff is they're great when you write a book. So each chapter, it addresses the principles. There's 3 key points in each chapter in terms of what to think about, the tools you should use, and then how you should go about employing the tools, but in a flexible way. So chapter 1 is about making experiences actionable. So this gets into this principle of not only aspirational, but holistic, and that you want to understand the desired emotional state people would like to have whenever they engage with anything. And what is the intangible outcome the thing has to provide, the benefits, in order to enable that desired emotional state to come to fruition. The tangible stuff, you need to design something. You need to know the features that are going to deliver the benefits, and then how those features look and act when they come to life to deliver those benefits through the sensory cues. So that connects what you make down at the sensory level, specific design details, all the way up to how you make people feel. Chapter 2 is about choosing a research approach. Just giving you a quick walkthrough here. As I said before, define your objectives, select an approach, consider the end deliverable. What you gotta, we're actually teaching at a lecture tomorrow at Carnegie Mellon University, and we're going to be talking about this in the class. We've got a whole presentation around that. And the professor thought it was really interesting that you need to think about what you're going to design in the beginning, what the deliverable is going to be before the end of the project. So we believe that's important. Chapter 3, finding the target user. You know, you'd think this would be easy, but more and more this gets harder and harder and harder. And sometimes we spend months with companies trying to figure out who their target user is. So you got to find the people you want to talk to, embody that in the screener, and then go find them. Pretty simple, but so important. Having effective conversations. We believe it's really important to be surgical with your conversations and very precise to know what is the conversation you want to have and make sure you have it. So you take that embodied discussion guide, but you got to execute those conversations, of course, in a way that generate bias, builds rapport, and things of that nature. So how you would go about conducting the interview. Data. With the rigorous principles, you got to be thinking about your data. So you want to build a data structure, and plan for a data structure, and make sure you fill that data structure up with good content and quality notes. This is probably one of the more unique chapters, I think, in the book, describing experiences with stimuli using projective techniques. So understand all the ways you can use collaging. It takes you through how to build a multi-sensory stimulus kit to give people tools to describe a product or a service or whatever the case may be, an interface, anything in a metaphorical way that's actionable for design. Here's some of the types of stimulus we may use. Animation, so we'll pull stuff from screens or stuff that people think is cool, textures, all kinds of stuff, and it goes into how to do that. Then it shows you about how to execute, tells you how to execute those once you've built your approach. Contextual query, context, use cases. I love a good use case, nothing better. But they can be hard to get. So what's the world going to be? How do you use contextual query? What are the ways you can tackle it? How do you do it effectively? And since we're all about a quality visual deliverable, then you need to plan for making sure when it's all said and done, you got quality, good imagery that you can utilize to tell your story. This is the simplest chapter in the book, but it is so important. Doing it right. Make sure you're prepared for your research. Your setup is finalized. You know how to use it. It's all ready to go. And most importantly, one of the things we always do is pilot test the approach and make refinements. Because with a pattern-based approach, you can't test them and then change the approach and test and change. You need to have a repeatable approach. And you may have a team, we may have a team in China and another team in Brazil doing the same thing at the same time. So we have to have that repeatable approach to identify patterns. And that helps you do that, is testing and refining to make sure it's right. Then you get down to finding the big ideas. How do you go from 2,000 lines of data in Excel or Google Sheets to a simple one-page framework? So there's a very structured process for doing that. We've got the path from data to insights here that starts with coding the data, and we take you through how to do that, how to go from the bottom up to identify themes, to synthesize those themes into bucketing, to build a one-page framework. And now I'm going to turn it over to Spencer, and he's going to talk about the last chapter, because that's about the design project at the end of the research to bring it to life in a way that will get people in the company to actually read it and use it.
So we made up a term when I came to work here called insight translation. And rather than put our marketing term in the book, we call it telling the story of the future. And basically, at the end of the research, we are trying to engage people with our research. I don't know, you guys have probably all seen a research report and your eyes just glossed over and you didn't really engage with it at all because it was too many words or disorganized or it didn't come to any conclusion, whatever the reason. We spend an inordinate amount of time trying to develop a clear story from our participants' perspective about the experience they want to have in the future and transfer that knowledge to an organization. Now, insight translation actually starts when Marty was talking about synthesis in the previous chapter, because we found you can't tell a clear story until you know what that story is. And that's what synthesis is about. We are training a client right now about insight translation. And their management said the biggest problem that researchers have is that they don't have a clear story at the end of the research. They just kind of put everything that they know in a report and expect somebody to be able to figure out what to do with it. Well, you need to take that work away from the audience and you need to make it fun and simple to understand. So what we do once we got a synthesized story is we create what we call a one-page framework or a model, an experience model. And the reason we do that is because we find that organizations, no matter how good your report is, people are lazy about reading stuff. So we try to take all the key things and put them on a single page. So if people don't have time to engage with your research report, you can at least show them this diagram and explain the experience that we're going to deliver to our customers, users. We also have a peculiarity here at Lexington that we make a lot of analog deliverables, and it doesn't matter if it's analog or digital because basically the story unfolds based on the model. The model is kind of like the table of contents for the report. And but we like to do analog deliverables because we think that they stand out in today's digital age. And we have stories from our clients about books sitting on people's desks for years and years and years and being a reference that they use frequently to go back and refresh their understanding of their users. And then finally, I think an important part of of any research project is to try to generate momentum for the experience people are seeking. And a lot of times we use storyboards to do that. And we don't focus on the thing so much, but we focus on the experience people are having, the emotional result from the experience, what benefits are they receiving from the thing, and what features are delivering those benefits.
The book is, all the principles are summarized in the back of the book by chapter, so you can see how the principles come to life for each chapter. We got a simple spread in there. And then we also have in the back of the book, we put the Cliff Notes in there for you. So there's the summaries of each chapter, the beginning and end of each chapter, so you can just get a quick overview of the book. So after 30 years, over 30 years of trial and error, we believe that we've taken the fuzzy front end and demystified it, come up with a flexible, repeatable approach that can work for you every time. And that's what the book's really about. So we would like to thank the User Experience Professionals Association for having us here today. We really appreciate the opportunity to share the book, and we'd love to hear your questions.
That was really fabulous. Thanks so much, guys. There are a couple of questions already populating the Q&A, so I'll go ahead and give you the first one. One person asks, how do you make insights actionable for teams downstream?
Okay. Marty shared with you something we call the anatomy of an experience. I think that that's one way you do it. You organize your insights so that they can understand the experience people are seeking. And it goes from the esoteric emotional stuff all the way down to the things that you see, touch, feel, taste, depending on what the experience is about, that deliver that. And those connected buckets of insights that we talked about are the way that we make it actionable for people.
I think another one is you got to have relevant use cases. Some people call them, there's use cases, jobs to be done, demand spaces, but typically there's a moment and a need and what you're going to do to deliver in that moment need. So I think you can combine the two and you can nail it every time.
Thanks. Here's another question. Is the book and its methods more suitable for certain industries?
We haven't done anything yet with the military. Well, Marty did 100 years ago with special forces guys, but we do food and we do services and we do cars and we do copiers and we do apps and
tons of automotive
websites.
HMI. And we do so much automotive HMI.
So no,
services.
We haven't found something that doesn't work.
We've done a building.
That's true. We did building,
restaurants, everything. I mean, it's because when you see something through an experiential lens, the way it comes to life is going to be grounded in the experience.
And that's why every stimulus set is custom, because you take what the experience is and you break down its component parts and you provide them stimulus so they can be articulate about what they want in a future experience.
Thanks. Other questions, anyone? Oh, here we go. This is from a comment from Brian Sullivan. No question, he says, but a compliment and testimonial. I just finished my summer quarter in the graduate program at SCAD. I've studied Google's UX process, ideas, design thinking, and the Interaction Design Foundation. This book is one of the most informative and profound that I've had the pleasure of learning from. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Send us your address. We're going to sign a book for you.
Another question. How does this process and framework impact the lifetime of insights gathered?
I love that question. Because it's based on people's dreams for the future, if you take an aspirational approach, what you wish for, your findings have a long shelf life. P&Gs use the work for 15 years. When people's dreams for the future change, then things change. The other thing that would make the shelf life not so much shorter, but change is sensory cues are really what lives in our collective psyche. We just pull them out of people's heads. It's the meaning that exists in the world. And that meaning changes over time. So for example, prior to this wasn't a thing. And this was the gestures and swipes and things weren't a thing. So they did, now that's all in our collective mindset. So ways of interaction can change sensory cues. But the dreams for the future are pretty consistent.
Head and Shoulders is still using stuff we did 14 years ago. On the back of the book's a testimonial from a lady that from Microsoft. We did work about user types for knowledge workers, and she still refers to that work, and it's 10 years old. So projecting people out into the future, and as Marty said, the emotional, the way they want to feel at the end of an experience won't change. The benefits they're seeking won't change. What may change because of technology are the features that they deliver the benefits and the sensory cues, what signals that are features in an interface or a thing.
Thanks. Brian Sullivan says he will reach out to you on LinkedIn. Are there other questions or comments from anyone else? Seeing none. Last call. Seeing none.
I'm sorry, did you get the last question about what would be your follow-up to this book?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't. Thank you, Jennifer. I didn't scroll down far enough. What would be your follow-up to this book, and what do you think the big challenge is next?
I think we need to write a book about how you use the stuff you learn to define value, to show people how to use it to measure value. I think that's probably the next book for us. Measuring value.
Would you say that that's more about how to communicate value to and advocate, or is that more of the quantitative measuring value?
Well, it can, we've done it quantitatively. So you take everything that people wish for, and you can measure on the emotional level, the benefit level. Does this save you time? Is this organized to, does this look homegrown? Whatever the case may be, you know, the important variables. I'll take a step back. We'll take the stuff that we discover in the upfront generative research. These are a list of potential variables that could describe what people want. You can quantitatively validate those. We've done that many times for our clients, and typically 95% of what we discover comes back as important. So you're discovering new things to measure. Then you take those variables that are proven to be important, and when you generate ideas, you measure those ideas in relation to what you know people want in the first place. And that allows you to ensure that what you deliver will be valuable to people. Does that answer your question?
Certainly answers mine. This person will have to type in if it's not. Another question did come up. How do you differ? Maybe they meant differentiate what clients tell you they need from their users' actual needs. So how do you tell a client their baby's ugly, or how do you differentiate between what the clients hired you to do and what you actually are learning from the users about what they need?
We involve them with us. You know, I would say we start by listening to them and understanding what their stakeholder reviews, to understand what their business goals are and what they need to learn. What are their questions? So we listen to them and to make sure they know we know their questions and we answer their questions. And in the end, in that chapter 9, the bucketing, building the one-page framework, we do that with them. And that gives them an opportunity to all the functions align around what people want, what they desire. Once they do that, you can then use the metrics to assess. We'll often assess, even in the upfront research, compare what people are describing they want to their offer of today and get feedback. So it's getting them all aligned on what people want. If they believe that, then the rest will follow. But that can be tricky.
Closely working with our clients is the short answer to that. They're part of the team. They help us pick stimulus. You know, they're involved throughout the whole process.
Yeah, get that skin in the game early. Question from Stephen Radney. Are you able to practice the same way within organizations deeply entrenched in agile methodology?
Well, that's a good question. And, you know, I'm going to do Lotta Gorlico. She is on the back of the book, and she makes a really good point. there's foundational research to establish what people want. If you get this talks about in from an agile standpoint, you describe what people want, you figure that out. Then your agile, your iterative ideation is focused on trying to deliver that based on what's happening today, your technology today. Use experience metrics at the end to measure ideas. So agile would start, we believe, at step 3 in the design thinking process as we describe it. Everybody in organizations aligned around what people want, what they're going to do. Then you ideate, prototype, and test iteratively.
Yeah. Other questions? We still have a bit more time. I see.
Marty's good at impersonations. You want him to do a few?
I would.
Yeah, I'm not.
Gentlemen, this has been, oh wait, there's a question here. How has your human factors background helped in this work?
You know, that's one thing writing this book actually taught me. And I think that's one reason. You know, I walked into a design firm. I was getting a master's degree in human factor psychology. I walked into one of the biggest design firms in the 90s, of the 90s. Well, it was 1989. And I searched far and wide for years. I'd go to human factors conferences. I'd read books. The theories of cognition, information processing, things of that nature, they don't really honestly help you in the upfront fuzzy front end. But what helped the most were 2 things. Basic understanding of experimental methods that you would get in studying psychology, which my undergraduate was in, and statistics, and ensuring that your outcomes aren't due to chance. So I would say that those are the things I've learned the most. Experimental design is you can't minimize your variables. You got so many of them, so you have to attack it from a different way, but you know what you're doing. So the information processing stuff, because this is more emotional. And, when I was trained in psychology, people didn't like to study emotions because you couldn't measure.
Now we can.
I love it. You mentioned the SCAD certification. Will you be offering a broader certification for professionals?
We're talking about that, getting a book done as a part of is a full-time job in addition to your full-time job. And now we've got the book out, and we're talking about that. We're probably going to do something. We just haven't figured out what that is yet. It's been a crazy ride. It's been fun, but it's been wow.
Marla Zinni asks, how about reasonable timeframes to conduct the research? Do you feel that the entire process that you described can be done in 12 weeks? That's a semester. I'm wondering if Marla is one of my students.
That's a great question. SCAD's on 10-week semesters.
Yeah.
Got 10 chapters. And so it was designed to be taught. And that was my first reaction. Is when the professor from SCAD was up here and she laid out the class, and I looked at it and I thought, 10 weeks, oh my God, how do you do this in 10 weeks? A typical project for us is 9 to 12 weeks. And that's when you got chapter 3 done, when you have a screener in your head and you know who your target audience is. So we really worked hard to condense it. And I know when talking to other professors, some schools are on 12-week, 14-week semesters. So, but it can be done in 10 weeks. You can get a certification.
Yeah. Excellent. As an instructor, if you your next book, if you want to have the teacher's manual with the slides and exams and question bank, we wouldn't say no.
Well, we do have, if anybody's teaching a book, we have some. Well, the Professor Herman's at SCAD, she would say, I need a video on this. I need a video on this. So we've built a couple of videos for that, and we've given her a whole list of stuff, but we can't remember what we gave her to help teach it over the years. So we're going to compile all that to help support the teaching in the classroom as well. So if anybody wants that stuff, reach out and we can get you what we got now.
Here's a good question. Where do they buy the book?
Anywhere.
Lex Stunt is the publisher.
Yeah,
And you can go to their
Wiley is the
website.
publisher. Wiley is the publisher, and you can buy it at Barnes and Noble and Amazon and everywhere.
I think it is supposed to have global distribution is what we were told.
It's being translated into Mandarin
Oh, that's right.
next year.
There you go. Anyone else? These are great questions. Okay. Hearing no more, again, I want to thank you both. This has been absolutely wonderful having you here, and I hope we can get you back again soon. Just to remind you, UXPA does have a conference coming up in Austin next summer. Might be a good place to bring some of your books and maybe give a talk.
Well,
So.
We would love to come and we'd love to come down. I submitted a UX strategy submission with one of my clients. So
Excellent.
we're in there.
Excellent. Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed that I get to meet you both face to face next summer in Austin. For everyone who attended today, thank you so much. We're glad you joined us. Please join us again for future webinars and short courses. For UXPA International, I'm Abby Goodrum, and I'm saying goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.